Hello, today is 9/28 of 25 and I am here with a video of what I eat in a day on my keto journey. If you're new here, my name is Christy. I changed my diet to a high protein, moderate fat, low carb diet in April of 2024. At around 9:30 this morning, I had my coffee, which I made with a half cup of Fairlife whole milk, a serving of whey isolate protein powder, and a serving of my collagen peptides, which I am now out of, and I have to wait till I get some more on the second. So that's kind of a bummer. And then I went to church, and now I'm home, and I am making our lunch, and I'm making a recipe that I haven't made before. I am making sesame chicken. I will leave a link to the recipe in the description below. The original recipe, I'm actually making a double recipe. So I have 3 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken breasts that I have cubed up. And the original recipe says just to like cook it until it's cooked through. It doesn't say to add any seasoning, but I have learned that that is not how to do it. You should really need to be seasoning every layer. There's no salt in like the sauce that I'm going to be adding. I mean, there's some salt, but like there's no added salt. I definitely want to be adding some seasoning to this, and maybe I'll end up saying, "Oh, it's got too much flavor," but I'm gonna chance it and add some salt and pepper to this because I just have found that if I don't do this, then things end up tasting like it'll taste like chicken with some sauce rather than like a whole dish of like good food. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get this browned up and I'm going to make the sauce. Okay, so for my sauce, I need a half cup of brown sweetener. And I just use a monk fruit allulose blend. That's kind of my favorite is to use a monk fruit allulose blend. And then I need a half cup of soy sauce. So this is where some salt would come into um, the sauce. And I get that soy sauce is actually a pretty salty ingredient, but I still feel like my chicken needed salt and pepper. And I actually might be just using up the rest of my soy sauce. Oh, I have another bottle just for future. And then I need a half cup of ketchup. Now, I am using regular ketchup. I can't find my sugar-free ketchup. I'm not sure where it's at, and I really don't want this to go to waste anyway. So I'm just going to use it, and it'll be fine. I'll, like make sure it's worked into my macros for the day. I need a teaspoon of onion powder and the recipe calls for a half teaspoon of crushed red pepper flakes, but my family doesn't handle spicy well, so I'm only going to add a quarter teaspoon. And then I need some minced garlic. I need 4 cloves of minced garlic. So that is 4 teaspoons, which is actually the equivalent of 1 tablespoon plus 1 teaspoon. There are 3 teaspoons in a tablespoon. All right, and then I'm just gonna get these, I'm gonna use a whisk, I think, to get this all mixed together. So like I said, I'm waiting for my chicken to get browned. Now the original recipe says to cook it all the way through. And then you pour the sauce on and you let it simmer for 5 minutes. Well, to me, that leads to overcooked chicken. So I'm only going to cook it partially through, like most of the way, say 80%. Then I'll add my sauce and I will allow it to simmer for 5 minutes. Okay, so I've got my chicken cooked most of the way through, probably about 80%. I'm going to go ahead and add my sauce in. And this is not the only recipe that I would make this change to. I make this change to a lot of recipes just because I have found in all of my cooking, and I cook a lot, or at least I did. I haven't been lately, but I just find that it like pretty much always leads to overcooked chicken, and I don't like that. I would rather have perfectly cooked chicken. So that's why I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to get this all stirred in, and then I'll get it covered and let it simmer for about 5 minutes. Actually, no, I don't need to cover it. The recipe doesn't say to cover it. We want it to reduce down a little, so we do want that to be open so it can kind of evaporate off. So speaking of cooking, I used to cook all the time. I taught cooking classes. I loved cooking for my family. It was something that I did. It's part of me. And then after I changed my diet, that really kind of diminished. And I think it was because I was just so focused on trying to make sure that I was doing what was healthy for me. It was hard to kind of add on top of that being creative with food and really like getting into this like cooking of interesting and like more complex meals, I guess. But I'm kind of through that phase now, and I really do want to start cooking more. I want what we have going on in our home to be like normal. I want it to just be this is just the way that we cook, and tonight we're having this and tomorrow we're having this, rather than kind of this mindset particularly that my kids have. But I know it's also propagated by me, where it's like, oh well, I want this because of what I intend to eat, rather than it just being this is our food. So I'm going to try and change that a bit. I got probably 30 recipe books from the different libraries that I've been to over the last few weeks, and have uploaded a bunch of recipes into my recipe keeper, which I use Plan to Eat for that. Um and but I've gotten all these recipes, and I'm like, but I never eat anything. Like I'm always making the same things. And so I have challenged myself to try at least one new recipe a week for right now. Our lives are so busy, I just can't commit to more than that. Probably over the winter I will change that, but right now I want to commit to trying at least one new recipe a week. So this is one of those recipes that I am trying. Here is my finished dish. My sauce really did not thicken up much at all. It's okay. So underneath here, I just have some shredded cabbage, and then I topped it with some sliced green onions and then sesame seeds. That's actually what the recipe calls for, is just to put the sesame seeds on top as a garnishment. Okay, so I tasted the sauce while it was cooking, and it just had a really overpowering garlic flavor. So I added more sweetener. I added probably another quarter cup of sweetener to kind of cut that back. It is much better now. So yeah, I mean, it's good. Definitely needed more sweetener than what the recipe called for. Um, and I crave some peanuts, which I don't eat because I'm sensitive to them, but like some crushed peanuts on top would be really, really good. But it's a decent recipe. I guess if you don't follow the recipe, if you change it a bit, it's a good recipe. I think this is something that like we would make in the future. I do wish it had thickened a bit, just because I wanted it to kind of like coat my cabbage. And I could have like let it reduce more for longer, but the problem was I was getting overcooked chicken. Like my chicken is a bit dry, and I really don't like that. So I'm not sure exactly how I might tweak it to kind of like correct that, but as it is, it's decent. So, just an updated review of the chicken based on my family's feedback. They did say it was a bit spicy. I think it was actually the garlic that it was just too much. Definitely next time I will probably cut that garlic in half. I think that's really where a big issue came from. But they did think it was good. Everybody ate, like their full portion and stuff. So that was nice. I am getting ready to go to the gym. I plan to do a HIIT workout, so 45 seconds of work with 15 seconds of rest. I'll do 3 or 4 rounds depending on how I feel. But then once I come home, I want to be sure to get some good like carbs and protein and fat in me. And that's probably actually the last thing that I will eat today. So I've got it ready so that it's just done, and when I get home I can eat. So what I'm going to have is I took a couple tablespoons of this is what it looks like. I took a couple tablespoons of cream cheese, and I mixed it with a half serving of protein powder. This is apple pie flavor from Prodo. I chose this because of like the apple cinnamon flavor in it. And then I topped it with some, which I'll just mix these in, with some raisins, which I know people are like, raisins, high carb, whatever, but it's fine. It'll fit in my macros for today. I have about a half serving of these, and that'll give me that really good um, carbs to like upload into my muscles, because they will have depleted glycogen and the protein that I need to start doing that repair work, and doing it right away will cause my cortisol to be blunted and kind of not inhibit, but blunt the storing of fat hormone. So I'm going to have that on top of a bagel. So this is from Hero Brand. I hadn't tried these, and I had heard that they were really good, and I ended up getting a really good deal on them. So they're in one bagel. There's 130 calories with 4 grams of fat, 460 sodium, 25 carbs with 21 fiber. So 4 net carbs, and then 19 grams of protein. The ingredients are water, resistant wheat starch, wheat protein, fava bean protein, Jerusalem artichoke fiber, rice flour, olive oil, yeast, and then 2% or less of salt, vinegar, cultured wheat flour, gargum enzymes, sesame flour, and cornmeal. Um, so I've actually have tried one like from this package. I just don't think I've told you. So I feel like it's a decent keto bagel. It's definitely still a keto bagel. Like the texture still isn't exactly what you would want. In fact, to me, it tastes more like a pretzel, like a big soft pretzel, than it does a bagel, which can be delicious, right? Like if that's what you want, then hey, maybe have a hero bagel. But like it's not like the best bagel that I've ever had, or like a really good substitute. I mean, it's fine for a keto substitute of a bagel, but it's not like, oh, I don't even know that it's, not keto. Like that isn't true. So I'm going to toast that up and I'm going to add this to it. Because I really like cinnamon raisin bagels. That was my favorite kind of bagel pre my change in diet. So that's kind of what I'm trying to mimic here. I had a great workout. It was really hard. I did 4 rounds, 45 seconds of work, 15 seconds of rest. This time I made it a bit core heavy because I intend to do a leg workout tomorrow, strength training, and I didn't want to wear out my legs today and not be able to do that tomorrow. So I did goblet squats, hollow hold, renegade rows, slam ball, deep walking lunges, which means my knee touched the floor. I haven't been doing those. I just kind of didn't have the ability, so I've kind of like pushed myself to make sure that I'm like touching the floor with my knee and then coming up. Plank shoulder taps, weighted curtsy lunge, and dumbbell lateral raises. And then I just walked on the treadmill, like zone 1, for about 20 minutes afterwards, just to kind of help my body calm down. I had my bagel with my little cream cheese mixture on it. Um, I ended up adding cinnamon to it, just like sprinkling some on top, just because it didn't have enough cinnamon flavor. It was really more appley. Which, I mean, I could just add cinnamon to the cream cheese and then it'd just be like cinnamon and raisin, right? But I wanted the protein. So that's why I mixed in the protein powder. And so just then adding some cinnamon made it like really, really good. It was really a nice like last meal for myself. And then I did an hour of cycle training down on my bike, zone 2 cardio. And I went to my son's hockey game and just kind of paced back and forth because I never stopped moving. But I made sure that I was never like out of zone 1. Like I was even like doing stuff so that I would make sure I wasn't walking too fast. I have still ended up in a caloric deficit of 1,200 calories. I'm not hungry. I actually went out of town and went to my hometown yesterday and I ate out for a couple of meals. So I ended up in a surplus yesterday, at least 300 calories, and it could be even like 500 calories of a surplus yesterday. So if we take that into account and kind of like average this out over the last 2 days, like let's say I was only in a caloric deficit of like 300, I mean a caloric surplus of 300 calories yesterday. Well, that means that I'm in a deficit for yesterday and today of 800 calories, which averages out to 400 calories a day, so it's just fine. I wouldn't normally want to have this big of a deficit, but because I did have a good surplus yesterday, I'm okay with the deficit that I have today. So I ended up with about 1,400 calories. My protein is 201. My net carbs are 38, and my fat is 44. Maybe I'll see you tomorrow.